We are nearing day by day to the elections this year in key states, and the political heat is catching up. Today is a big day for Punjab, as Aam Aadmi Party is all set to come out and announce their Chief Minister's face. This announcement will be made at noon. Now, this has come after the Aam Aadmi Party actually invited suggestions from the electorate. They sent out a number asking people to call and tell them who they want to see as the Chief Minister face. This is indications are fairly clear that it will be Bhagwant Mann, seen as a front runner, also seen as somebody who stuck with the party when there was an exodus of sorts happening within the AAP unit in Punjab. Now, we're all counting down to the announcement that will happen at 12 noon, like I said, but Mohammad Ghazali has been tracking all those details as well. Ghazali, we're expecting no surprises there, right? Bhagwant Mann, it will be.
Yeah, no surprises there, because be it 2017 or 2022 polls, the CM face or the CM aspirant remains the same for Aam Aadmi Party. It was Bhagwant Mann back in 2017. The party never announced a CM face in the previous polls, and Arvind Kejriwal has been quoted saying this, that we are going to correct all our mistakes which we did in the previous polls. So this may be one of those that the party didn't go with the CM face, but this time this daily voting option introduced by Arvind Kejriwal for Punjab, and today, most likely, it is going to be Bhagwant Mann who will be announced as the CM face.
Assembly polls in Punjab will be held on the 20th of February instead of 14th of February as originally scheduled by the Election Commission. And that is after all the parties there, in fact, several parties there requested the poll body to defer polling in view of Guru Ravidas Jayanti celebrations. Here's what happened.
Followers of Guru Ravidas today blocked the Jalandhar's main roads, demanding the poll dates to be changed. Top political leaders backed this demand, and the Election Commission agreed to push back the voting from February 14th to the 20th. Guru Ravidas's birth anniversary is on the 16th, for which many of his followers make a pilgrimage to his birthplace in Banaras in Uttar Pradesh.
आम तौर ते इस तरह होया नहीं कदे कि एक बार इलेक्शन डेट डिक्लेयर हो गई होवे ते उस तो बाद वो बदली गई होवे। ये पहली बार इतिहास होया और मैं पंजाब सरकार वालों और पंजाब दे लोकां वालों इलेक्शन कमीशन दा बहुत-बहुत धन्नवाद करदा।
ਲੱਖਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਭਾਵਨਾਵਾਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੋਟ ਵੀ ਪਾਉਣੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਟ ਹੋਵੇ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਠੇਸ ਨਾ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਕਿ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਣ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਤਰੀਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਇੱਕ ਹਫ਼ਤਾ ਵਧਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ।
BJP had also written to the Election Commission yesterday regarding the same, and BSP, being an ally of the Akali Dal, had also written to the EC. The poll arithmetic is pressing. According to the 2011 census, about 1 in 5 of the people in Punjab's Doaba belongs to the Ravidasiya community, a scheduled caste. Doaba comprises of Jalandhar, Hoshiarpur, Nawanshahar and Kapurthala districts. Due to their growing influence, no party can afford to ignore it, especially at the time of elections. Since physical rallies and padyatras are banned till this week, an extension in polling date will give some breather to the parties who are struggling with digital campaign. NDTV Bureau Report.
All right, from Punjab to Goa now, where asserting that the contest in Goa is between the Congress and the BJP, senior Congress leader P Chidambaram said that his assessment is that Aam Aadmi Party and Trinamool Congress will only fracture the non-BJP vote, and has been confirmed by Arvind Kejriwal according to his tweet. Now, hitting back at Mr. Chidambaram, Aam Aadmi Party national convener Arvind Kejriwal said that Goans will vote where they see hope. Congress is hope only for the BJP, not the Goans.
Once AAP and the TMC taking on the Congress to replace it as Goa's main opposition party. Now, the Aam Aadmi Party chief says he doesn't rule out a post-poll alliance, including with the Congress to keep the BJP out.
अगर गोवा के लोग इस तरह का मैंडेट देते हैं कि कोएलिशन पोस्ट इलेक्शन करनी पड़ती है, तो नॉन बीजेपी किसी पार्टी के साथ हम कोलिशन करने की आफ्टर द इलेक्शंस सोच सकते हैं।
This at a time when the Congress and the TMC kept up their sparring over the TMC's offer of an alliance. Senior Congress leader P Chidambaram said that Mr. Kejriwal's statement confirms his assessment that the AAP and the TMC will only fracture the non-BJP vote in Goa and that the contest in Goa is between the Congress and the BJP. But the TMC, which says they've sent a concrete proposal to the Congress for which they yet have to hear a reply, says the Congress should stop acting high-handed.
We are open to an anti-BJP alliance, we have said that, but we are willing to talk. But if people think that they are emperors and they are going to be doling out largesse, then fine, we are there as a platform and Mamata Banerjee is there as an anti-BJP leader. The fight is against the BJP and the anti-BJP forces. The anti-BJP forces in Goa today are the Congress, the AAP and the Trinamool.
But all is not well in the BJP's house. BJP veteran Manohar Parikar's son Utpal Parikar has protested the BJP's decision to field controversial MLA Babush Monserrat from his late father's Panjim seat, staking his own claim for the seat. Not possible, says the BJP.
मनोहर भाईंनी निश्चितपणे गोव्यामध्ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी एस्टॅब्लिश करण्याकरता भरपूर काम केलेलं आहे. पण केवळ मनोहर भाईंचा किंवा एखाद्या नेत्याचा मुलगा आहे म्हणून भारतीय जनता पक्षात तिकीट मिळत नाही.
The Shiv Sena Sanjay Raut proposed that all non-BJP parties united to back Utpal.
आम्ही सगळे जे त्याच्या पाठीशी उभे राहिलो त्याच्यामुळे भारतीय जनता पक्षाला उत्पल परिकरांचा विचार करावा लागतोय, तो केला जातोय दिल्लीमध्ये, हे पण तुम्हाला आम्ही सांगतो. पण नाही झालं आणि उत्पल परिकर अपक्ष लढणार असतील तर सर्व राजकीय पक्षांनी मतभेद विसरून उत्पल परिकरांच्या मागे ठामपणे उभं राहावं अशी आमची भूमिका आहे.
The opposition space in Goa is crowded, and while the sparring is something the BJP enjoys, a post-poll alliance could pose a massive challenge if it does not get a clear majority. In Mumbai, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
All right, moving on. This is the best time to invest in India. That's what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in a special address to the world leaders, while detailing various steps that India has taken to make it the most attractive investment destination in the world. His speech mentioned how India offers a bouquet of hope to the world, which includes trust in democracy, also in India's technology, temperament and talent. Interestingly, at this forum, the Prime Minister also mentioned cryptocurrency in his speech, saying, like climate change and global supply chain, cryptocurrency also needs synchronized action. This is the kind of technology, he said, it is associated with the decision taken by a single country will be insufficient to deal with its challenges.
आज भारत वर्तमान के साथ ही अगले 25 वर्षों के लक्ष्य को लेकर नीतियां बना रहा है, निर्णय ले रहा है. इस कालखंड में भारत ने हाई ग्रोथ के वेलफेयर और वेलनेस की सैचुरेशन के लक्ष्य रखा है. ग्रोथ का यह कालखंड ग्रीन भी होगा, क्लीन भी होगा, सस्टेनेबल भी होगा, रिलायबल भी होगा. भारत ने रिट्रोस्पेक्टिव टैक्सेस जैसे कदमों में सुधार करके बिजनेस कम्युनिटी का विश्वास लौटाया है. भारत ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन्स में विश्व का एक भरोसेमंद पार्टनर बनने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है. हम अनेक देशों के साथ फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट के रास्ते बना रहे हैं. भारत में इन्वेस्टमेंट का ये सबसे बेस्ट टाइम है क्रिप्टो करेंसी का. जिस तरह की टेक्नोलॉजी इससे जुड़ी है, उसमें किसी एक देश द्वारा लिए गए फैसले इसकी चुनौतियों से निपटने में अपर्याप्त होंगे. हमें एक समान सोच रखनी होगी. लेकिन आज वैश्विक परिदृश्य को देखते हुए सवाल ये भी है कि मल्टीलेटरल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस नए वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर और नई चुनौतियों के निपटने के लिए तैयार है क्या? वो सामर्थ्य बचा है क्या? हर लोकतांत्रिक देश का यह दायित्व है कि इन संस्थाओं में रिफॉर्म्स पर बल दे ताकि इन्हें वर्तमान और भविष्य की चुनौतियों से निपटने में सक्षम बनाया जा सके.
So that was Prime Minister's speech. China Xi Jinping also made an address at the World Economic Forum where he spoke about peaceful coexistence.
We need to discard Cold War mentality and seek peaceful coexistence and win-win outcomes. Our world today is far from being tranquil. History has proved time and again. The confrontation does not solve problems. It only invites catastrophic consequences. Protectionism and unilateralism can protect no one. They ultimately hurt the interests of others as well as one's own.
All right, so let's talk about COVID now. In India, as a trend has been seeing lower number of cases being reported but a higher positivity rate. This is said to be related to the latest controversial rules that came in from ICMR that basically said you test only if you're symptomatic. There is already a noticeable change in the number of cases if we compare it to a week ago. But why exactly is this happening as tests are also falling? Here's a report.
Confusion at the Delhi government's COVID testing centres. After the ICMR revised its guidelines that asymptomatic individuals need not be tested.
आप टेस्ट करोगे? टेस्ट करेंगे पीवा नहीं तभी। मैं कह रहा हूँ मेरे साथ वाली बिल्डिंग में मेरे लीवर पॉजिटिव है, मैं नहीं, मेरे को खांसी जुकाम है। आप जिसकी गाइडलाइन क्या है, जिसके टेस्ट में पॉजिटिव एक बिल्डिंग में है, उसके घर पर जाकर टेस्टिंग टीम कर रही है। ये लिखवा के आए हुए हैं? डॉक्टर से भैया।
Many people have been turned away from testing centres across the national capital. Although the ICMR does not require a doctor's prescription for a COVID test, it seems this rule is being enforced in practice. But the health minister denies this.
जो फीवर, खांसी, जुकाम लग रहा है, उनका टेस्ट होगा। और जो 60 साल के पेशेंट है, अगर डायबिटीज है, अस्थमा है, ऐसा बीमारी है, तो उनको करना है। डॉक्टर की पर्ची की भी जरूरत है मैम। हमें कैसे पता ना कि पेशेंट खांसी है, जुकाम है, 30% तो मना ही हो रहा है पेशेंट।
Random testing at metro stations and markets has also been stopped.
For COVID testing, press 1.
Private labs, on the other hand, seem to be ignoring the new guidelines. NDTV called some of Delhi's leading private labs asking for a test despite no symptoms. All assured us that that would not be a problem.
The reduction in testing has led to a decrease in the COVID cases. The day after the national capital recorded its highest number of COVID cases in the pandemic so far, COVID testing began to fall and so did the cases.
Since the 12th of January, testing has fallen by 37.5%, leading to a dip in the number of cases detected. The risk of under-detecting cases is that policy decisions depend on it, such as the relaxation of COVID curbs like weekend and night curfew, not to mention the probability of asymptomatic cases infecting vulnerable people. With Sushil Rathi, Meher Pandey for NDTV.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has come down hard on states for going slow on rehabilitation of children orphaned during the pandemic, saying we need more than just statements on paper. Over 147,000 children have lost their parents due to COVID.
For 16-year-old Karan Lonke, who lives in Mumbai, life has been a struggle since his father died in May 2020. Karan and his mother have survived so far with help from relatives. Karan's father, Sanjay Lonke, was a driver with a private firm. His wife says the COVID compensation of 50,000 rupees was not enough to cover even living expenses. Karan wants to become a chartered accountant and support his mother.
I am trying myself to be a CA for my successful life, so I am trying all my best.
Job तो नहीं है कुछ, किधर से भी इनकम नहीं है, ये सब हो रहा है. इसकी पढ़ाई भी अभी 12th में है वो.
India's top court today came to the rescue of such children who have lost either one or both parents since the pandemic began in April 2020. A two-judge bench of Justice L. Nageshwara Rao and Justice B.V. Nagaratna said, the needs of the children who are starving on the streets cannot wait. The court is concerned about the lack of identification and rehabilitation of COVID orphans. We need action, not just statements on paper. The situation of these children will become worse in this biting cold. Give them rehabilitation wherever possible immediately. And the court has asked Delhi, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Odisha to expedite the identification and rehabilitation of children. According to the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, between April 2020 and January 2022, over 10,000 children have lost both parents and 1.3 lakh have lost one. Almost 500 have been abandoned.
The Supreme Court has asked the state governments as well as the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights to formulate a rehabilitation policy for such children and file a status report in 3 weeks. With Saurabh Gupta in Mumbai and camera person Sachin Gupta in New Delhi, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
All right, with that, we're going to slip into a break. Coming up on the other side, the latest on the COVID figures in Assam. Welcome back. Let's look at some COVID figures and we look at it state-wise. Also joining us on this will be my colleague Ratnadeep from Assam, Shrija from Karnataka. We'll be keeping a special focus on both those states as well. Let's begin with Assam, where on Monday, Assam recorded 6,982 new COVID cases, the single highest that they have seen in a surge since the pandemic began 2 years ago. And overall, the test positivity has reached the highest mark till date, 10.75%. Guwahati also reporting its all-time highest spike and recorded about over 1,400 cases there. 11 people died across the state as well, which is now looking at the highest ever cases. Ratnadeep is with us. Ratnadeep, take us through what exactly is happening here and how is the government assessing this? Are we expecting more curbs to come in light of these figures?
Well, the government has made it clear that at this point of time they are not looking at lockdown, but yes, more curves might come in given the fact that there is a sharp increase in number of cases, daily cases reported in Assam, particularly after the Bihu festivity, because the test positivity before Bihu on 13th of January was just above 7%, but now it is almost 11%. So there is a sharp rise. There is a sharp rise in terms of the number of active cases. In the past 3-4 days, number of active cases in Assam has gone up by more than 7,000. In fact, in the last 10 days, Assam has reported more than 23,000 active cases, and most of it obviously from Guwahati, which is giving every day. Guwahati is registering a lot of cases, more than 1,000 cases, and the positivity rate in Guwahati city itself is nearly 15%. So that is a big reason of worry, given the fact that Guwahati is like a gateway not only to Assam but across Northeast. And remember, for the Bihu festivities, although the government allowed people to actually celebrate, but they had asked people not to congregate into large gatherings, although the night curfew hours were tweaked so as to help people celebrate Bihu. But it seems there is a Bihu induced spike. At least the numbers show this. There has been the highest single largest spike ever for Assam ever since the pandemic had started. 11 deaths yesterday is again a highest in past 6 months. So these are figures that the government should be looking at. Already authorities have confirmed that there have been 55 cases of Omicron that have been confirmed in Assam till this point of time, ever since the third wave of the pandemic started. So the government would be looking at also how to manage this, and the idea for the state government is to not harm the economic activities but to contain the spread of the disease. Hospitalization still is less in Assam, but what is concerning here would be the way the numbers in Guwahati particularly spreading, and also the major cities. If you look, apart from Guwahati, the biggest contributors are the district just adjacent to Guwahati, the Kamrup district. Major towns in Assam like Tinsukia, Jorhat, Dibrugarh and Silchar in Barak Valley region have been reporting on an average over 1,000 cases per week, and therefore perhaps the concern at this moment is in terms of how to contain the spread of the diseases in major cities which are again connected by railway and airway. So the state government says that the focus is more on people who are coming from outside. But with these numbers, it is also clear that with almost no restrictions in terms of movement of people within the states, the virus and the third wave of Omicron is now spreading to rural areas of Assam.
All right, so that's the situation in Assam. Let's switch our focus to Karnataka now, which is also at the moment actually reporting a significant dip in test positivity. So, Shrija, the story in Karnataka is very different from that in Assam. And we've been speaking over the weekend. You said how it seems to be going up. And for the past how many days are you noticing a dip now? Or is it too early to say that a peak has already been reached there?
Well, firstly, on Sunday, Karnataka had reported a test positivity rate of a little over 19%. It was almost 20% with at least about 34,000 cases. But on Monday, the state had reported a test positivity rate of 12.5%. Now that is down nearly by 6.84%, and the cases that we had reported, the state had reported, was about 27,000, which means the cases that had considerably come down was by nearly 7,000. But of course, it is too early to say an early indication at the moment because it's just a matter of one day. We have to wait and watch for today's report, what it was like in the last 24 hours. But what is important to note that yesterday, this is on Monday, the Chief Minister, Basaraj Bommai, he had chaired a very important expert panel meeting along with the Technical Advisory Committee. They did, in fact, a couple of calculations, also comparing the trend, especially with Maharashtra and also Delhi, to understand the declining numbers in those states. But at the moment, of course, it's too early, very early, just a matter of 24 hours that we have reported a significant dip. But according to the state government, what they say after the meeting that was chaired with the Technical Advisory Committee, they say that Karnataka will see a peak by the last week of January. So there's going to be another meeting that's going to be chaired this weekend. And also Karnataka government might come up with more curbs. But at the moment, some of the curbs that are still in place is especially the weekend curfew, what we are looking at. And also, as far as the meeting is concerned, the Chief Minister has asked the local administration to involve the local doctors and also deploy more personnel, especially at OPDs. Because remember, over the past 7 days, the trend that we have witnessed here is that the OPD consultations are up by nearly 200%. So the government did, of course, issue a public advisory asking people not really to visit, even if you have mild symptoms or if you're sick. Just, in fact, not to visit the hospitals and also to avoid crowding. But at the same time, in the meeting, the decision that was taken was to deploy more personnel at the OPDs so that there can be a smooth operations of OPD consultations. Now, that is one. The second thing, what's most important to note over here is, like I did point out, where the numbers in terms of the COVID cases that's been reported in the state of Karnataka has come down by nearly 7,000 just in a matter of 24 hours. They have also, the state government has also ramped up the testing to nearly about 2,20,000. This is in just a matter of 3 to 4 days, where they have ramped up for over 50,000 testing. This includes both RAT and RT-PCR. And some of, as far as the police is concerned, the police department, now they have also issued an order asking in terms of all kinds of rallies, whether it is a public rally or political rallies. Now all of that has been banned to ensure they are able to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the state of Karnataka.
I see. So towards the end of January is when they're expecting it to peak. But so far, first signs, encouraging signs of actually dip taking place, and not just in numbers, remember, because of the guidelines, you'll have to now start looking at positivity rate much more. In fact, talking about the positivity rate, let's take you through the highest positivity rate that we are seeing in states across the country. Goa leads that chart with 36.1%, followed by West Bengal, 31.5%, followed by Puducherry, 28.8%, then comes Delhi at a 27%, followed by Chandigarh, Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Maharashtra, Punjab, and then Haryana. So as we look at all those positivity rates going up, the only hope is a vaccines which in Tamil Nadu, the first dose has been completed 100% for the 15 to 18 age group in just 2 weeks.
Tamil Nadu has become the first state to give one COVID vaccination to all students in government schools in the 15 to 18 age group. At this government school in Chennai, 1,200 students got their first dose earlier this month. Authorities say it wasn't made mandatory. Lalita hopes this would pave way for resumption of regular classes and higher marks.
We lost our marks without writing the exams.
They are eligible for vaccination. When I informed to my parents, they are willingly send their children.
However, overall, the state has so far covered 76% of the 33.4 lakh population in the 15 to 18 category. The challenge? Various schools and institutions which remain shut and some vaccine hesitancy.
இப்பொழுது இந்த ஐடிஐ பாலிடெக்னிக் போன்ற பல்வேறு இடங்களில் குறிப்பாக தனியார் பள்ளிகளில் படிக்கிற மாணவர்களை கண்டுபிடித்து அவர்களுக்கு தடுப்பூசி போடும் பணியினை செய்து கொண்டிருக்கிறோம். இதுவரை 76% மாணவ மாணவியர் அந்த 15 முதல் 18 வயதிற்குள்ளானவர்கள்.
Tamil Nadu's daily tally hovers around 23,000 cases and around 35% of its 18 plus population is yet to take the second dose. And this milestone in the 15 to 18 age group, the government hopes will be a major step forward to make schools safer and to expedite resumption of in-person classes in the months to come. In Chennai with Mohan, Sam Daniel, for NDTV.
And the pandemic has had an impact on the economy as well. RBI now has a report on this. It talks about how Omicron may turn out to be more of a flash flood than a wave altogether, the third wave. Also goes on to say the path of recovery encountered headwinds from rapid surge in infections due to Omicron, and the pandemic severely dented consumer confidence in India. Goes on to say that the sentiment of consumers in severely impacted cities were more affected as compared to other cities in the Indian agriculture confronted with emerging challenges. Emerging challenges also in climate change, in agriculture, waste management, also in fragmentation of farm holdings, disguised unemployment and volatility of food prices. All right, switching our focus to the latest in Kerala, and outrage and anger is spreading at the verdict which has acquitted Bishop Franco of rape charges. Here's a report.
How the sisters are going to live? It's a big question that we are facing, because they are facing an organization, such a big and powerful organization, and they stood against a powerful man.
Outrage over the verdict that acquitted rape-accused Catholic Bishop Franco Mulakal after a police complaint by a nun in 2018 that he sexually abused her 13 times between 2014 to 2016. Many are angry over what they see as victim blaming in the 289-page verdict.
I cannot support the judgment. The judge has considered as to how to disbelieve a witness and not how to believe a witness. What are things possible to disbelieve a witness? He has traced out some flimsy grounds. The Supreme Court has time and again said that in cases of rape, the general rule regarding the delay in launching the prosecution or launching the FIR cannot be considered. It's not applicable.
Contradictions like the victim's initial allegation was being forced to share bed and not sexual violence on 13 occasions or rape. There is no satisfactory explanation of the delay of 4 to 2 years in raising the allegations against the accused. There is no consistency in the statement of the victim describing various sexual allegations, alleged contradictions raised by victim. The grievance projected by the victim to her companion sisters was that the accused was taking retaliatory steps for not yielding to his sexual desires. Whereas, victim's version before the court was that she was forced to do sexual intercourse with the accused on 13 occasions, including fingering on the first occasion. Apart from the testimony of the victim, there is no corroborative evidence to prove the prosecution case. Police could not seize the mobile phone used by the victim, which would have provided some input into the alleged vulgar messages sent by the accused.
You don't need that language to establish a legal point. You might need it in an FIR, but the FIR is not a public document.
Several legal experts have questioned the verdict for its language and assumptions. Some even questioning the fact that explicit details being given out in a final verdict can only shame a victim or possibly act as a deterrent for several other complainants. The appeal against the verdict by the nun is going to be crucial to gauge the judicial response. With camera person SP Babu, Sneha Koshi for NDTV.
Back in the poll-bound state of Uttarakhand, the Bharatiya Janata Party has dismissed a cabinet minister, Pushkar Singh Dhami, from the government and expelled him from the primary membership of the party for 6 years. Now, in response to that, an emotional Harak Singh Rawat called his dismissal a blessing in disguise. He's now expected to join the Congress party.
After a week of defections from the BJP and poll-bound UP, news of an upset from neighbouring Uttarakhand as well. Once congressman turned BJP, minister in the Pushkar Dhami government, Harak Singh Rawat could be on his way back to the Congress. The inkling of which forced the BJP to sack him. Harak Singh claims he's shocked, breaking down at this news.
इतना बड़ा निर्णय, मैं उनकी सरकार में कैबिनेट मंत्री था, सीनियर मिनिस्टर था, सबसे मेरे बहुत व्यक्तिगत संबंध थे, अमित शाह जी से, नड्डा जी से, प्रहलाद जोशी जी से, सबसे बहुत अच्छे संबंध थे. एक बार मुझसे बिना बात किए हुए इतना बड़ा निर्णय उन्होंने लिया, मुझे लगता है कि विनाशकालीन विपरीत विधि.
The BJP says it saw through Mr. Rawat's game plan. CM Dhami said Harak Singh Rawat was pressurizing the party to give tickets to his family members.
अपने परिवार के लिए और अन्य लोगों के लिए पार्टी पर दबाव कर रहे थे, तो इसलिए पार्टी ने निर्णय लिया. हमने तय किया है कि एक परिवार से एक व्यक्ति को ही टिकट दिया जाएगा और किसी के परिवार में हम 2 टिकट 3 टिकट नहीं देंगे, क्योंकि हमारी पार्टी हमेशा इसके खिलाफ है.
While the BJP had acted against Harak Singh Rawat, there is also a realization that he isn't a greenhorn. In 1991, Harak Singh Rawat was the youngest member of the assembly to become a minister. Uttarakhand was still a part of UP then. Since then, Harak Singh Rawat holds great political clout in the Pauri Garhwal region of the state. Sources say he could repeat a Maurya-like formation in Uttarakhand as well, with at least 3 sitting MLAs following him.
कोई व्यक्ति पार्टी में आवेदन नहीं कर रहा है और पार्टी के स्तर पर मुझसे पूछा नहीं जा रहा है, मैं इस पर कुछ नहीं कह सकता. हाँ, मैं एक बात जानता हूँ कि पार्टी जो भी निर्णय करेगी सभी चीजों को ध्यान में रख करके करेगी.
As there is talk of Harak Singh Rawat's return, the Congress may have to do its fair bit of expectation management as well, fixing the delicate equation between Harak Singh Rawat and Harish Rawat. For the moment, the BJP seems unfazed with this possible departure, claiming that they rather cultivate their own leadership instead of pandering to turncoats. Bureau Report, NDTV.
Let's take you through the latest COVID figures that have just come in for the past 24 hours. And India has recorded 238,000 COVID cases in the past 24 hours. The positivity rate, the numbers are down compared to yesterday, and the positivity rate is also down. It has come down from 19.65 to 14.43%. It's about, the overall numbers are about 7% lower than yesterday as well. So both numbers and positivity rate seeing a slip from the past 24 hours. Total Omicron numbers detected are about 8,800 at the moment. All right, so those are the numbers coming in. We'll sort of deep dive into what this means, the positivity rate along with the numbers coming down overall in the country, and what exactly is the trend telling us for the upcoming days as well. Meanwhile, let's take a look at these numbers state-wise. Now we'll begin with Kerala, where over 22,946 cases have been reported and several samples have been sent as well for testing. Over 700 hospitalizations have also taken place. 18 deaths confirmed in the past few days. And apart from that, 54 deaths added after appeals that 114 health workers had been affected. Sneha Merikoshi joins us for the very latest on these numbers. And also joining us is Shrija from Karnataka. So a view on both those states of Kerala and Karnataka is what we'll be taking in the next couple of minutes. Let's begin with Sneha. Sneha, your first thoughts on how exactly are the trends, COVID trends looking like in Kerala?
Well, if we look at the data very closely for over, say, last 2 weeks, there are some things which are very clear. One is the test positivity rate, which is soaring. It's literally jumping. If you look at the test positivity rate, it has crossed 30. It is at 33.07%. How fast has the jump been? If you look at just about 10 days ago, it was somewhere at 6. And if you look at around a week ago, it was at around 11. And now we are talking about 33.7%. The R value, or the rate of the infection being spread, just about, say, a little over a week ago was less than 1. If it is 1, it shows that the cases are almost static. But now it has jumped to 3.7 in just over a little week, less than 2 weeks for sure. The daily test positivity rates across the state, of course, are increasing. In Thiruvananthapuram, again, the trends are extremely high. It's perhaps showing the single highest test positivity rate at 44%. So if you look at this, there are medical experts who are saying that Kerala is gearing up for what would be a peak perhaps very soon, this month end or the next month. And that is not going to be very different from the several peaks that several other states are seeing, and some that have already begun to see a decline as well. But Kerala gearing up or moving towards its peak.
All right. In fact, Kerala doesn't seem to be the only state getting towards peak towards the month end. Shrija was telling us Karnataka looking at a similar timeline. Shrija.
Well, though Karnataka reported at least about 34,000 cases on Sunday, with test positivity rate almost shooting up by 20%, on Monday what we saw was the state recording at least about 27,000 cases with a test positivity rate of 12.46%. Now, the test positivity rate, yes, there is a significant dip. Now, this is nearly by 6.84%. But remember, it's just a matter of 24 hours, and it's so premature to talk about whether Karnataka is going to witness or we are going to see a decline in the number of cases. Now, as far as the Karnataka government is concerned, Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai, he chaired a meeting with the Technical Advisory Committee. They worked out on their calculations and also comparing it with the trend, the declining trend in Maharashtra and Delhi, and they have come to a conclusion that Karnataka will witness a peak. This is towards the end of January. Now, of course, we have still a few more days to go, but remember, we have to wait and watch out for today's the COVID report as well, if there's going to be an increase or a decrease in cases. But at the same time, the government has issued certain curbs. That apart, they have also ramped up their testing from nearly 1,20,000 to nearly 2 lakh. Now, that is a huge, significant increase in terms of testing. But however, in the matter of 24 hours, we have looked at where the cases have come down by nearly 7,000.
I see. All right, so that's the latest update from Kerala and Karnataka. Thanks, Neha and Shrija, for joining us with that. Let's also focus on Assam, which, unlike the declining trend that we are seeing in other parts of the country, is actually surging up. This is said to be after the Bihu celebrations there. Assam at the moment, in fact, reporting the highest single-day cases that they've seen since the onset of the pandemic. All right, so we'll keep tracking that for you. Meanwhile, news coming in of an earthquake that has been reported in Arunachal Pradesh this morning. We are told that an epicenter was about 140 kilometers from Basar area, and till now no reports have come in of any loss of life or property at the moment, but tremors have been felt across the state. So an earthquake of 4.9 magnitude hit Arunachal Pradesh earlier this morning. Tremors were felt across the state, but no loss of either life or property has been reported so far. We'll keep tracking that story for you. Welcome back. We'll be looking at some COVID-related news now, and beginning with an RBI report that has come on the impact the pandemic, COVID-19 and specifically Omicron, has had on the economy. RBI in this report goes on to say that Omicron may turn out to be more of a flash flood than a wave itself, saying the path for recovery encountered headwinds from rapid surge in infections due to Omicron, and the pandemic severely did in fact dent consumer confidence in India. Goes on to talks about sentiment of consumers is severely impacted in cities, more affected as compared to the others, and Indian agriculture confronted with emerging challenges. In fact, it has a whole list of emerging challenges for India. It includes climate change, agriculture, waste management, fragmentation of farm holdings, disguised unemployment, and volatility of food prices as well. Meanwhile, the centre has issued revised clinical guidance for management of adult COVID-19 patients, and there is now an entire relook at the way the medicines are being given out and the treatment for COVID-19. Now, the use of steroids has been discouraged on the protocol. Recently, COVID task force member Dr. V.K. Paul had expressed regret over the overuse of steroids during the second wave, which led to many cases of mucormycosis as well. The revised guidelines also advise if cough persists for more than 2 or 3 weeks, one should opt for investigation for TB, for tuberculosis and other conditions. Home isolation has been recommended for mild patients in line, again, with what has been defined by the ICMR last week, but medical attention be sought if oxygen level goes below 93% or fever persists for more than 5 days. All right, let's quickly recap for you the numbers of COVID that have come in the past 24 hours, and India has now 238,000 more cases in the past 24 hours. This roughly is about 20,000 lower than yesterday. Omicron cases so far are over 8,800, and the daily positivity rate, and that's interesting, has also seen a dip. It is now down to about 14.43% compared to roughly about 19.65 that we had reported just yesterday. Let's take all these interesting numbers that have actually come into our guests now. Joining us on the program, we've got Dr. Shashank Joshi, member of the COVID task force in Mumbai. We have with us Dr. Sunila Garg from the ICMR. And we also have Dr. Subhash with us, who's the member of the National Task Force on COVID and senior advisor at PHFI. Dr. Joshi, if I can begin with you. Today's trend and the numbers that have come in for the past 24 hours are rather fascinating. Till yesterday, we were talking about numbers going down but positivity rate going up, that talked about the ICMR guidelines actually coming into play, and more people who actually tested were getting positive, as the ICMR guidelines actually talk about no asymptomatic person being advised to test at all. But today the positivity rate also taking a major dip. How are you reading this?
I think this is to be read with a pinch of salt, because it's a Sunday effect, and we know that the Sunday reportage on Monday is always low. Clearly in Mumbai and Delhi you can see that there is a flattening and there is downing of the curve. Asymptomatics, if they do not test, they will not get recorded and get reported. So that dip is also going to be reflected in this. So I said that this, numbers, I take them with a pinch of salt. They are not the true reflection. And even in the Omicron pandemic, our current numbers have to be the hospitalized beds due to COVID, with COVID, oxygen beds, ventilator and deaths. Those are the true yardsticks of the current wave and not really these absolute numbers.
I see. So Dr. Joshi is saying that don't jump to conclusion just yet. It could be the Monday effect. That's why we are seeing numbers the way they are at the moment. Dr. Sunila Garg, your thoughts? In fact, interestingly, when I'm looking at the number of tests done in the past 24 hours, they're actually more. In fact, 3,35,699 more tests were conducted yesterday.
See, basically, good morning. That is one thing which is very important to remember, that whatever tests we do, they are supposed to be representative of the population. But then another thing which I have to also comment upon, it is very soon to comment upon, the dip in number of cases. We have to wait and watch, because you see different states are in the different phases of the pandemic. As you know, we can see Delhi and Maharashtra may have shown a decline, but if we look at Assam, Tripura, or we look at Ladakh and all, some of the states are showing the rise in number of cases. Particularly if I was to talk about the example of, Tripura or Assam and all that, but there is definitely a rise in number of cases. So we have to wait and watch the overall situation. But the situation is well under the control. But then, we have to take the whole perspective in the country scenario, because overall when we see there's a increase in positivity at the national level by 1%. That was yesterday.
I see. In fact, you talk about that, and looking at positivity rate, is that going to be the key forward? And I want Dr. Subhash to sort of weigh in on that. Moving forward, keeping the ICMR guidelines in mind, should we now be concentrating on the positivity rate more than the numbers?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think all these numbers, particularly from the national perspective, it's such a huge country, huge number of, you increase the test and you are likely to get more number of people positive. So all these figures we have to look at from a definitely appropriate perspective. Let's not get swayed by these figures daily, fluctuating, and they are bound to fluctuate. You are going to see now situation differed from state to state. Say Delhi, Mumbai, within Maharashtra, Mumbai, Thane belt is going to show a different kind of version. So from this perspective, we have to now focus upon 3 or 4 important criteria or important parameters. One is positivity rate, extremely important, because that will clearly indicate whether we are showing upward trend or plateauing or going downward. So positivity rate is a very critical. Number 2, admissions in the hospital. How many people are getting admitted for COVID, and of that, how many require oxygenation? Of that, how many are in ICU, ventilation requirement, and deaths? Only 4 parameters. Rest all figures, they are of great importance from academic perspective, from long-term perspective, from public health perspective. These 4 parameters need to be monitored by every state, by every city, and by every district. If we monitor these, and if you show a continuous either plateauing or decline, I think we should be considering that we are comfortable. Let's not talk national picture. I mean, we go on making this mistake. Indian picture, no way. It has to be state, it has to be city-wise, a geographical area-wise picture is the most critical part.
Right. So you're saying positivity rate is key. In fact, we had the top 10 states in the country which are seeing the highest positivity rate. I'll sort of request my producers to put that graphic up on screen as well, wherein Goa has the maximum, 36.1%. Dr. Joshi, followed by West Bengal. Then there are states like Puducherry, Delhi, Chhattisgarh, Chandigarh, Kerala, Maharashtra. Then you've got Punjab and Haryana, two poll-bound states actually there, which is a bit worrying. But as we continue to look at these positivity percentages over here, in a state like Delhi perhaps, could you tell us how exactly this pans out? 27.8% in Delhi, where we've seen a good amount of vaccination cover. We've seen a good amount of seropositivity as well. So in states like this, you're again going to go back and understand the problem and how deep it really is by just looking at hospitalization perhaps.
Absolutely. In fact, we are not going to look at just the hospitalization. There are two types of hospitalizations. Hospitalizations with COVID, that means somebody gets admitted for an accident or cancer or a heart attack or a stroke and gets tested for COVID. Then it is actually with COVID, not due to COVID. But somebody is breathless due to a flu-like syndrome, COVID is tested positive and is admitted, that is actually due to COVID. The main thing in cities like Delhi and Mumbai is that a large proportion is asymptomatic. Even now, a mild or asymptomatic disease. And this mild and asymptomatic disease, 95% of it can be managed at home alone. It is the vital, key, vulnerable and comorbid groups which need to be saved. And which are those? They people who have immunocompromised states or people who have underlying chronic diseases, terminal illnesses. They need to be red flagged. They need to be watched more carefully. And they are the ones who will need hospitalization, oxygen or ventilator care. So that is really the key. And we need to focus on ensuring that we have zero COVID death and we have least patients with severe disease. What you mentioned about Delhi, that despite of vaccination and despite of seropositivity, we are still having a large number of seropositivity or the test positivity rate. That's fundamentally because this is Omicron. Omicron has something called immune escape. It is explosive and contagious, and it also escapes the people who had COVID in the past and have taken two vaccinations. But remember, it is less severe. The only caveat which I want to red flag everybody here through your channel is that do not miss that occasional delta. If there is a lung involvement, it could well be the delta, and delta is the second wave or the delta derivative, and that still needs to be ensured. At least in Mumbai city and Maharashtra, we are seeing a substantial proportion. Between 10 to 20% of cases in Mumbai are delta or delta derivatives. In Maharashtra, it's almost 40 to 50% is still delta or delta derivatives. In Delhi, what has happened is when the wave came, delta was almost extinct. They were hardly reporting 10 or 20 cases. So predominantly, and the preponderant strain is predominantly the Omicron. So obviously, as Dr. Salunke said, that it is geography specific, cluster specific. So each geography will have to look out the Omicron, the delta, and be vigilant, save every life, and being connected with your medical doctor is the key.
Right. In fact, more and more doctors are actually talking about this now, especially from Maharashtra, about how you can't rule out Delta just yet. Delta kind symptoms are being noted in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, and several other lungs in several cases being reported as well. So that's a key point we must keep an eye out for. But let me go to Dr. Sunila Garg next. Dr. Sunila Garg, the minute numbers come down, the understanding is that along with these numbers, there will be sort of these curves that have come into place. Delhi, for example, in other places, we've got a night curfew, you've got weekend curfew, similar, curfews are on in other states as well. Is it a worry to doctors like you at the moment that with numbers coming down, there could be lifting of these bans, which could not help solving this problem at all?
See, basically, we have to wait and watch the situation for some time. As Delhi has followed a graded action plan, but we have to see that actually we should not be hurrying this decision. And we have to watch the situation over a period of at least 1 week, and then we take a concentrated decision. And then we have to take a holistic picture in terms of hospitalization, in terms of, the number of cases, and also in terms of, basically not only in terms of hospitalization, but the characteristics of the individual. That is important. How many of these are on oxygen beds and all that. But primarily, definitely, if the situation is well under control for a period of over a week.
How do you define well under control?
See, definitely we have to see that over a period of time, I was comparing between the last 2 days. There is a difference in, about 44% of the cases, between the 2 days, last 2 days when I was looking at the figure of Delhi. So it is important that if there is a constant decline over a period of 1 week, so we should positivity definitely will matter. And if the positivity definitely comes down to around 10% or so, then we should be looking at the situation. Because as of now, we can
watch the positivity rate for a period of 1 week. For 7 days, if there is a continuous decline and it happens to come below 10% in single digits, basically, that's when you say the situation is under control and that's when you lift the curbs. Am I hearing you correct?
Yes, definitely. The number of positivity rate has to continuously come down because that is one of the important markers. And as I always feel from a public health perspective, that it is important to see that whatever samples we are testing, even if earlier we tested 65,000 and now we are testing 44,000, it is an important marker that it is representative of the population.
Sure.
So it's not the number, it's actually the representation of the population that will tell us, exactly that the number of cases which are coming, in terms of positive are the reflection of what is happening in the real-time situation.
I agree. These are very important markers over there. Dr. Subhash, then, I just want to come back to poll-bound states here. Both Punjab and UP, even where at the moment virtual rallies are taking place, there is no in-person massive sort of crowding happening because of the directive. Are you worried that once this opens up, there could be further more cases being seen? Or is this, again, like Dr. Salila Garg said, a wait-and-watch situation? We are barely any weeks for elections now.
The fact remains, if you relax the curbs, definitely there will be an increase in the cases. It is absolutely obvious. It will be only dependent upon these poll-bound states about the vaccination status. If suppose you have an appropriate level, like you say Maharashtra, Delhi, that we are doing really good as far as vaccination part is concerned. In these states, if the vaccination level of both doses in adults at least is beyond 60%, definitely there will be cases, but there won't be too many admissions, too many deaths. So as far as poll-bound states are concerned, it will be dependent upon EC to take a decision whether there should be relaxation. And these night curfews and weekend curfews are just eyewash. I mean, it has practically, epidemiologically no relevance. It is just to create an atmosphere, nothing beyond that. But restrictions to ensure that really people congregation is avoided during the particular time certainly helps us. As far as these states are concerned, it will be continuous monitoring of these parameters as well as trying to ensure how to push forward as far as vaccination is concerned and certainly surveillance.
Very
and
interesting
last
what
point
you're
I
saying.
want to...
Go ahead, sir.
Last point I want to make it very, very appropriately clear at this juncture for the nation. And that is, see, we are just focusing on Omicron. Let us appreciate that there are now crores of people in India, in spite of the fact that we are doing 160 crore vaccination, but still there are many who have not taken even one single dose. The COVID is also right now, the Delta variant is still circulating.
Yes.
So Delta and Omicron coming together, resulting into a possibility of a newer mutation cannot be ruled out. And I'm more worried about that. At this stage, we have to, and that's the reason at the national level also, we are continuously requesting that genome sequencing surveillance is very critical so that we get early warning signals that whether are we going to face a newer variant which may be more virulent, which may be more transmissible. That is the real risk from the country's perspective.
That's a good warning they're coming in. That's a good warning they're coming in. Dr. Shashank Joshi, just want to give you the last word over there. So what Dr. Garg is saying is that when it comes to understanding how bad the situation is, watch out for positivity rate, watch out for also hospitalization. She's also saying if there is a continuous decline in positivity rate, that's when you know that it's going to show a downward trend. But then Dr. Subhash is a good point. He's saying when it comes to poll-bound state, you can't keep them shut inevitably. So vaccines have to be really looked at. I mean, UP has one of the lowest vaccination rates in the country. That is a worrying sign. And then on top of that, new variants emerging. How worried are you about that?
So weekly trends are the thing to go. Don't go by daily trends. Second is responsible behavior.
So you mean weekly positivity rate?
Yeah, weekly positivity rate and weekly hospitalization rate and oxygenation rate and the death rate. Save every life. That's very crucial. It's important to distinguish Omicron versus Delta. Don't miss that occasional Delta, but it's predominantly in North India. It's predominantly Omicron. While in states like Maharashtra, Kerala and Northeast will still be having a little admixture of Delta or Delta derivatives. But we need to be vigilant. See, we cannot let our guard down at all. Though this may be a less severe variant, we need to save every life and we need to be committed to ensure safety of people, and that's the key. So without panic, with a lot of caution, we need responsible behavior. Masking and vaccination are the key, will always remain the key, and avoiding closed spaces, indoor environments as well as crowding is also the key. So as long as we do our basics right, I don't see a major challenge. Definitely this strain is less severe than the earlier strain. There is no two ways about that. And therefore it gives us hope, but it should not give us complacency or reckless behavior. It doesn't give us a license for reckless behavior. We still need responsible behavior. We still need to mask and vaccinate. And I think one thing is good, that the less severe disease allows us not to get strained on our healthcare infrastructure.
Yes.
At the same time, it is winter season, pollution season. So we need to be very cautious and careful to distinguish this flu-like syndrome from other viruses also.
All right, that's all the time we have on the program. Thank you all for joining us with some very important perspective on which way the wave is actually going at the moment. All very, very good points made over there. We're going to slip into a break now. Coming up on the other side, international news and also how no more tickets are to be sold for the Beijing Winter Olympics. Details in a moment from now.